how important, how big is the private debt problem in Greece? How does it affect the current situation and the performance of the country with respect to the the institutions and the memorandum? And if it is important, what can be done about it?
The problem of NPLs, non-performing loans in Greece, is actually a huge problem. Approximately, we have over 108 billion euros in non-performing loans. This amounts to 50% of the total bank credit portfolio. And we've got also to keep in mind that this is approximately 55% of Greece's total GDP for last year, for 2015.
And is there any? Do you think it is a game changer? Is the importance of the salience of the problem such so big that we are talking about a game changer in terms of the program and the continuation of the program and the institutions?
Yes, as we can imagine, the systemic risks deriving from the NPLs are very significant, and it's high time to deal with this problem. At any rate, there are conflicting interests, as we may all imagine. There is the interests of those borrowers who are in real need of protection. On the other hand, we've got to keep in mind that there is also the enforceability of the contracts, this principle, the moral hazard, and probably the free rider effect, which is being reflected in the problem of strategic default.
Fantastic. And a more general question. You know, everyone has been following, although we have had different ways to try to prevent the remedies for the Greek problem, a huge problem in terms of national sovereignty debts. The dominant economic paradigm underlying the policies and the remedies has been the orthodox one. In economics, as a result of the Great Recession and as a result of various developments within the discipline, a new non-standard but increasingly important strand has emerged, the so-called behavioral economics, starting from Kahneman and others. How could this new paradigm help, if at all, in the Greek crisis?
Your point is very good. Let me first briefly introduce you to behavioral economics and to behavioral law and economics, which is the application of the behavioral findings to the field of law. We are actually less rational than the economists assume or than the economists predict. The rational man, the so-called Homo economicus, actually does not exist. It is a starting point, it is a basic assumption, but there is a series of cognitive biases or volitional weaknesses which strongly affect the way we make our decisions, our decision-making process. In particular, this has a significant impact upon the decisions we reach when we get a credit, when we get a bank loan. There are some specific behavioral biases at work here. For instance, an overconfidence bias. We overestimate our capabilities, our abilities to pay in the future our bills, to repay the credit, and at the same time we underestimate the future risks deriving from such borrowing. There is also the hyperbolic discounting and present bias. We stick to the present pleasures, and we do not think what's going to happen in the future. And we got also to keep in mind what happens in the future. There are some tools deriving as well from behavioral economics and behavioral law and economics, which might be proved very helpful in order to draft efficient legal rules with the intent to address this problem of excessive borrowing. In the first place, we may design default rules towards this direction, which might help the consumer and potential borrower to better perceive its own interests. In the second place, there are also informational nudges or informational duties on the part of the banks, which have a specific and very strong responsibility towards the potential borrowers. They have to inform them of the problems and dangers that they face in the future if they go into a credit line. And thirdly, probably we could also think of a right of withdrawal within a certain period after the conclusion of the loan agreement, which gives a second chance actually to the borrower to reflect upon its initial transactional decision. This is a second choice, a second chance to reflect without keeping a distance from the heat of the moment. I think that these public policy instruments might be proved useful in the future. Nowadays, however, we have a great problem. We must address it before resorting to available bail-in tools or to asset management companies. The banks by themselves are resorting to somehow by themselves, I underline it sometimes, to debt restructure or debt haircut, and the courts as well are trying with the tools offered by the pertinent legal framework to restructure loan agreements, to grant moratoriums of non-payment, etc. Probably in specific sectors we might need a general legislative intervention. As for instance is the case probably for Swiss franc and currency law agreements.